Kia ora. My name is JD Evans. Let's read a book. Today, something a bit different, but the same. Today, I'm going to be reading my own book. But before you run away entirely, I should let you know this is actually my first and currently only book. So, it's basically flawless, okay? I would know I'm a YouTuber, and we know everything. Jokes aside, or not, as the case may be, this is Descent. Descent is book one in a trilogy called the Trilogy of the Striker. It's a high fantasy, essentially, with dark fantasy elements included. It's also written entirely in non-binary language. That is to say, it does not use gendered pronouns, and where possible, avoids the use of words with a clear gendered root. Yeah. So, if you didn't know this was a queer-friendly channel run by a big old queer, you know now. The plan is to make the reading of my book slightly separate to the rest of JD Reads, in that I intend to read the entirety of Descent on here, one chapter at a time, with a new chapter released every Monday. So Monday's video will, in theory, always be me reading a chapter from Descent. Let's get cracking! You need not fail, you will not die, you are mine. Tragedy has befallen the best and brightest of the Callan Imperial College of Striking. A young mage, a prodigy who once had a bright future ahead of them, flees terrified into the night. In an unyielding foreign world they are tested and tried time and time again as they struggle with grief, heartache, and the loss of innocence on their steady descent into the shadows. Incredible map artwork there by the very talented Brent Shasky. Prologue. The corridor seemed to stretch into eternity before Rasan, and yet somehow they arrived at the door all too soon. They had faced many challenges, great tests of perseverance, strength, discipline, and courage as they advanced through the college's exams. Often had Rasan found themselves under particular scrutiny. The instructors and high mages of the college applied pressure to their star pupil like no other. Nothing, however, could compare to this moment. All the danger, the pain, the physical labor, the immense mental stresses, all of it meant nothing if they messed up this one test. Rasan could feel the cold hand of fear creep up their spine. Bracing themselves, steadying their breath, steeling their mind, and clutching the small bag of expensive sweets close to their chest, Rasan knocked on the wooden door. "Mm-hmm," came the notably agitated, not so encouraging response from beyond the portal. Rasan took this to at least be assent to enter, and gingerly opened the door. The room within was almost identical to those occupied by the other students at Callan College of Striking. It contained a simple bed, pointedly built for one, a writing desk covered in parchment with quills and an inkwell, a modest shelf to hold books alongside a small number of personal effects, and a single window, in this case looking out over the fields west of Callan. But this room contained something quite different to the others, something with folded arms and tapping foot, something whose withering gaze had transfixed Rasan upon their entry into the room, and with a single eyebrow arched so sharply it might have presented a mortal threat to passing birds. It left Raz entirely defenseless. This room contained Vale Kaitur. Mage Instructor Damon described Vale as hard-working and capable, though unremarkable next to Rasan in anything other than the dueling arena. Rasan described Vale as the most beautiful, most handsome, most perfect creature to have graced this undeserving world with their presence, and the deepest, truest love of their life. "Begin," said Vale. "I'm sorry," began Rasan. "Good start," Vale replied, even-toned. "I really did want to go to the river last night. I just completely lost track of the time in the fields, and Instructor Damon has me working this really crazy routine, and I... Rasan trailed off as they came to the conclusion that making excuses, however true, was not the diplomatic solution. I'm really sorry, Vale, they finished lamely. Vale allowed a few moments of silence to pass before replying. Raz, they began with a gentle firmness, it is perfectly acceptable for you to have no time for me right now. You have an exam tomorrow, and I know the pressure is on you above all of us to perform your best. It was not fair of them to bring your exams forward so far, and I know how much extra work it has created. Rasan maintained their silence, knowing that this pause was temporary. It is not acceptable for you to behave as if you have time, organize a date with me, and then leave me high and dry, alone on the bank of the Cow with no idea what was happening, and a bunch of boaters looking at me having a picnic by myself in fancy evening clothes like a lunatic. Vale finished. They spoke in a deliberate, instructive tone, but not patronizing or accusatory. Rasan was reminded of all the countless reasons they had to love Vale. Vale's look had softened, and they stepped towards their lover, arms unfolding. Let us not organize anything outside of the college until we are done with these exams, yes? We are just about through the worst of it. Sounds like a plan, Rasan smiled and exhaled, openly relieved. Vale extended a hand towards Raz, who returned the gesture, stepping forward to accept the offer of an embrace. Instead, Vale swiftly relieved Rasan of the pouch of sweets. Very kind of you, Vale noted. Before Raz had a chance to react at all, Vale was across the room and sitting on the bed. They had a sweet in their mouth and a smug grin on their face. You have a lot of study to do, Vale indicated the vacant desk. You should study here tonight. Vale watched their lover from the stands. Rasan was calm, steady, and confident, walking alone into the central courtyard of Callan College. It was here that Raz would attend to their most important striking exam yet, the Tapestry of Wheat. They were to be afforded the honor of undertaking the Tapestry of Wheat months ahead of their classmates. They were the most promising student to attend the college in living memory, and had been afforded many such honors during their training. The fact that they were a child of the single most powerful merchant family in Mabal was probably not a hindrance either. Traditionally, the Tapestry of Wheat took place in a field of wheat ripe for harvest, but Rasan's exam had been moved so far forward that it would be more than 2 full seasons before any such fields would be ready. So instead of using the striking to weave intricate patterns in a golden field, Raz would make their tapestry from loose stone columns and wooden structures erected specifically for the purpose in the college's enormous, flat marble courtyard. This unusual format had not been attempted in nearly a century, and appropriately it had attracted a massive crowd. Townsfolk, majors, students, and even some riverboat crews were all eagerly strained from the fringes to get a clear view of the arena. Rasan walked at an even pace toward the center of the courtyard and up the few steps to the small platform. Here they would conduct their work, breathing steady, heart rate controlled with practiced ease. To Vale's eyes, Raz glowed. They were an image resplendent, Vale's single most inexhaustible source of pride and happiness. Even dozens of feet away, Vale's breathing matched Raz's, as it had in their years of training together, and when they would lay in each other's arms. Inhale, exhale. Such was Rasan's discipline that they were utterly oblivious to the crowd, in a state of trance-like calm, unaware even of Vale watching from the single crowd stand built to accommodate the majors of the college and their distinguished guests. Vale knew that Raz was taking every passing moment for the opportunity it presented, a chance to reach out and feel for the flowing strands of the striking. First they would extend their mind into the world around them, finding the closest invisible lines of magic almost immediately as they walked. Next they would uncurl their fingers and draw these lines in, twisting and turning them around their hands and arms in a graceful, familiar flow. Rasan would pull more and more of the striking to themselves in waves as they walked on, allowing the power of it to wash over them and holding it in a tight orbit about their body. By the time they reached their position atop the platform, they would be bathed in arcane power that, while it could not be seen, could easily be felt by all those present trained to sense the striking. Vale's chest continued to rise and fall in unison with Raz. Inhale, exhale. The gathered crowd included many with no magical acumen, and these people chittered with excitement. The buzz of conversation in the air rose in volume and energy as Rasan came to a stop on the platform, the anticipation railing against the deliberate pace of proceedings like a caged drake against steel bars. A strained hush fell in short order as Kalan College's mage rector at last rose from their bench on the crowd stand and raised their hands for silence. Rasan, child of Aslar. The mage rector's voice was strong and boomed around the courtyard, belying their advanced age. Their shadow-laden eyes, pinched features, close-cropped grey hair, and dark, battle-worn skin spoke of a long life of service in the ranks of the Iron Legions as a striker. The wizened mage spoke in a deliberate, slow cadence. Tremendously charismatic, no doubt, but Vale paid them no mind. They heard nothing of the mage rectors gushing over Raz, their pride. In all likelihood the mage rector spoke as if Rasan were their own child, and that their performance today would make such and such very etc., etc. Vale could not care less. Raz, as always, occupied their full attention. The crowd broke out in applause and cheers of encouragement. The locals were also very proud of their Rasan. Raz stood impassive, facing the mage rector, totally still except the steady rise and fall of their chest and the subtle flexing of their fingers. Inhale, exhale. Vale smiled. My Rasan, they thought. Another round of cheers, whistles, and applause from the energetic crowd at something the mage rector had pronounced. Their speech apparently complete, they extended their right hand, palm up, towards Rasan. Begin. Rasan stepped out wide into a deep, low stance, drawing their hands up from their sides to the middle of their chest, smoothly pulling the contours of the striking towards their center of gravity. Breathing perfectly in time with their every superbly balanced movement, Ras extended their right arm, long, thin fingers unfurling as the striking flowed like a river down this new course. 3 stone columns and 1 small wooden structure erupted spectacularly one after another as the invisible lines of power struck them. At first it seemed to the crowd as though this was simply a display of might. The prodigy was showing off with their first move. As the dust settled, however, it quickly became apparent the degree of expert purpose in this strike. Cast perfectly across the marble of the courtyard was a great curving smear of shattered stone and wooden splinters, exactly as if elegantly placed there by some giant brush wielded by an invisible painter. Rasan Alan painted on. Vale was beaming in the stands, welling with ever greater pride and adoration for their beautiful partner. The careful twists and complex turns that Raz undertook on the platform were stunning. Vale had never seen them move so gracefully, nor command such lithe and awesome power in all their shared training. Raz shifted from stance to stance like a dancer from the high country, up, down, and over, all the while sure-footed, and all the while wielding the striking to tremendous effect. The first beads of sweat were beginning to form on Rasan's face as their artwork started to take clear form on the now thoroughly scuffed marble. The exam was going exceptionally well, as Vale had known it would. Raz was more than a match for the demands of such a test, and success was proving a simple thing. Still, Rasan was far from arrogant, and they had maintained exactly the same level of near-superhuman concentration throughout. They did not show off, nor did they relax. Everything, every move, every step, every breath, every flick of a finger was considered, planned, and executed with characteristic excellence and consistency. Vale's eyes flowed over Raz's body, flowing with the rivers of magic rising and twisting, and waterfalling over Rasan's muscles. Beautiful, truly beautiful. Rasan shifted to bring the weight of their focus to a new section. Vale had an excellent view of their lover's face as they brought the striking around past the crowd in a great arc. They had an excellent view of their lover's face as the sweat poured down their youthful features in rivulets. They had an excellent view of their lover's face as a curious, kaleidoscopic flame erupted for a second, for a fleeting moment, just beside their cheek. They had an excellent view of their lover's face as, starting just a finger's width below their right ear, Rasan's lower jaw tore clean off and cartwheeled through the air, followed by a spray of dark red fluid that travelled in a spectacular arc to further stain the beaten courtyard. A combination of simple inertia and disciplined adherence to form drew Rasan further into their new stance. They lost focus, understandably, at the completion of this movement, and the striking smashed uncontrolled into the marble of the courtyard. The ground erupted with such violence that great lumps of stone several feet across were thrown into the air. The horrified crowd had not yet been given the split second they needed to cry out in fear or alarm before Rasan's entire ribcage was ripped from their chest in a shower of viscera, up to join the white stone blocks and dust falling all around. Mage Instructor Damon, Vale and Raz's closest mentor and teacher, died 24 days after Raz. The night of the funeral, Vale packed their bag in a feverish panic. They did not fully understand what Damon had meant when they last spoke, nor why Damon would then take their own life, but Vale knew they were in danger. It was time to leave. Vale planned poorly, fear dictating their moves far more than logic. They did not wait until the dead of night when the college would have been asleep. They did not think to check the corridor outside their room before throwing the door open and sprinting along the cold stone floor. Had they done either of these things, they may not have run into Mage Instructor Frotrude. Had they simply slowed down and thought for a moment, but they may not have been under the sway of surging adrenaline. Had they just taken a breath, they might not have reflexively struck Frotrude, sending the old instructor careening headfirst into the jagged stone corridor wall. Blood. So much blood. Frotrude stopped moving when they hit the floor, and there was Rune. Oh, Rune, Frotrude's tenacious red-headed protege. They were frozen in shock in the corridor just behind where Frotrude had stood moments before. Vale pushed past them, still barely breathing. Vale Kaitur fled, the sound of their pounding footfalls and hammering heartbeat deafening in their ears. They tried not to think about how their footsteps sounded wet. Vale fled, in fear, in panic, and in deep, unrelenting grief, into the shadows of the night, and the shadows consumed them. And that was the prologue of Descent by me, J.D. Evans. I hope you enjoyed this reading. I'll read chapter 1 next Monday and then carry on like that every Monday until I've read the whole darn thing. I've included links to where you can buy Descent online. That would be fantastic and wonderful and amazing, and I'd be deeply grateful for the support. And also links to my Facebook page and Twitter, where you can follow me for more updates on my books and the channel and other authors and all that good stuff if you would like. If you live in Aotearoa, please feel free to message me on my social media pages, and I can arrange getting you a copy of the book a bit faster. I am an independent author as well, so every little bit of support from you is absolutely fantastic, and I would be forever in your debt. As always, thanks very much for watching and listening, everyone. If you like this video, please consider leaving a like, and if you would like to see more of this video, please subscribe. Ring the bell. Bells are cool. And if you have any suggestions for books I might read in the future, please comment below. Thank you so much once again. See you next time.